everybody. It's Mike Newberry, the pastor at the First Baptist Church in Lincoln, Arkansas. And here we are once again with you. And I know for me, this is a time that I look forward to. And I hope the same is true for you. I hope that between the time that we meet, that it's a time where you're looking at your watch constantly saying, well, maybe it's time for Brother Mike again. And so again, I'm glad to be before you. I'm glad to be able to share with you. And I hope that what God has laid on my heart will bless you, minister to you, and help you. So if you remember where we've been and where we're at, then you remember that we're right now involved in a series of sermons through Matthew chapters 8 and 9. And what I noticed about these two chapters is that it's just one story after another, where we find Jesus in different situations with different people. And what amazed me about Jesus is that he never got it wrong. He always knew what to do. He always knew what to say. I mean, how many of us have you ever experienced where you opened your mouth and put your foot in it? And what I've learned about Jesus is that nobody did life better than he did. And it is a skill that I want to learn from him. We know that one of our jobs in being a Christian is to present ourselves with such quality that people will want what we have. And again, I'll say nobody did it better than Jesus. And so if you were with us the last two times, we're in our third message, then you know we have seen Jesus touch the untouchable. At the beginning of chapter 8, he ministered to a leper. And then we saw Jesus in the second message love the unlovely, where he dealt and ministered with a Roman soldier. Well, today we're going to read the story about when Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law. And what we're going to notice is that Jesus came into the house. And he had complete freedom and complete permission to see whatever there was to see and minister wherever the need was. And how many of us do we know that's exactly what we need Jesus to do for us? We need to invite him into our homes. We need not hide anything from him, but let him see everything. And then only he can do what needs to be done in our homes. So I've given this message the title of simply, Jesus, come in this house. So join me now as we read from Matthew chapter 8, beginning at verse 14. And when Jesus was come into Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her. And she arose and ministered unto them. When the even was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils. And he cast out the spirits with his word, and healed all that were sick, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses. It says in John chapter 1 in verse 44 that Peter was from Bethsaida. But what we're reading here is that Jesus entered Peter's house, and it's in Capernaum. So what is it that we are to understand? I mean, a lot of times you and I, we might be confused and we might think, well, there's a contradiction here in the Bible. But you want to know what I've learned in studying the Bible? I have learned that if there is ever a problem, the problem is with me. The problem is not with the Bible. And if you and I will take that approach, then you and I will come to the Bible with the understanding that there are no contradictions, there are no errors. The Bible is complete truth. It cannot lead you wrong. It cannot lead you astray. And if you'll just think about it and study, then you'll find that the Bible is always right. It always makes sense. And so how are we to understand? Well, I want to take you to the first chapter of John and read to you the verses that describe Jesus and the very first time he ever met Peter. It says in John chapter 1, beginning at verse 35, "Again, the next day after John stood and two of his disciples, and looking upon Jesus as he walked, he said, 'Behold, the Lamb of God.' And the two disciples heard him speak, and they followed Jesus. Then Jesus turned and saw them following and said to him, 'What seek you?' They said to him, 'Rabbi,' which is to say, being interpreted, 'Master, where dwellest thou?' He said unto them, 'Come and see.' They came and saw where he dwelt, and abode with him that day, for it was about the 10th hour. One of the two which heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first finds his own brother Simon and says to him, 'We have found the Messiah,' which is being interpreted the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus, and when Jesus beheld him, he said, 'Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah. Thou shalt be called Cephas,' which is by interpretation a stone. The day following, Jesus would go forth into Galilee and find Philip, and said to him, 'Follow me.' Now Philip was of Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip finds Nathanael and said to him, 'We have found him, of whom Moses and the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph.' And Nathanael said to him, 'Can there any good thing come out of Nazareth?' And Philip said to him, 'Come and see.' Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said of him, 'Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile.' Nathanael said to him, 'Whence knowest thou me?' Jesus answered and said to him, 'Before that Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you.' Nathanael answered and said to him, 'Rabbi, thou art the Son of God. Thou art the King of Israel.' Jesus answered and said to him, 'Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, believest thou? Thou shalt see greater things than these.' And he said to him, 'Verily, verily, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man.'" And so again, what we read there was the very first time that Jesus ever met these early disciples, Peter being one of them. And so as we read that Andrew started following Jesus, and Andrew went and got his brother Peter and brought him to Jesus. But what question did we hear being asked by Jesus, and then the question being answered by these disciples? In verse 38, we heard the question, "What do you seek?" And I wonder if Jesus wants to ask that question of us. I wonder if he sees us following him at a distance, and he turns around and looks at us and simply asks, "What is it that you're looking for?" And don't we love the answer that the disciples give? And it's the same answer that you and I need to give. And again, as we look into this, we're going to discover why the Bible says their home was in Bethsaida, but then here we're finding their home is now in Capernaum. And so they answered the question by asking him a question. Where do you dwell? The implication is that they weren't interested in anything casual. They weren't interested in only surface level conversation. In a way, they were saying, I want to know where you dwell because I plan on staying a while. This attitude of hurry up that you get from so many in their Christianity. Hurry through devotionals, hurry through Sunday services. I want to draw your attention to the verse in Isaiah that Matthew says prophesies about Jesus' ministry. The verse is actually Isaiah 53, verse 4. Rather than my attention being drawn to the words about grief and sorrow, or as Matthew says, our infirmities and our sicknesses, I want to draw you to the words that these things can be borne and they can be carried. Some try to say that all this means that you and I won't ever be sick, we won't ever be sad. But you know what? You and I can say things like that, but we've all lived long enough to know that that's just not the way it is. So the word born here has the basic meaning of being able to lift. I saw in the Bible concordance I looked at, when I looked at this word born, I saw further in the definition the ideas of to bear up, to hold up, to go on, and to simply get some help. The word carried here has the basic idea of being able to carry and then being strong for labor. Our words describing what we suffer here on earth talk of both diseases in the body and grief and anguish in the mind. Now, there's not a one of you that I'm not talking to that you and I don't suffer from both of those things. In fact, I might even be talking to somebody right now that you're suffering from either a disease in the body or an infirmity in your mind. And don't we love the invitation Jesus gives all of us in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. Here's what he said, "Come unto me, all you who are weary." Does that anybody out there today? "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden," or burdened down trying to carry the load that we're trying to carry. How many of us are glad that those are the people Jesus is inviting for us to come to him? And he goes on to tell us that if we will accept this invitation, that he will give us help in being able to carry our burdens. In fact, let me go ahead and read those verses to you. Matthew 11, starting at verse 28. "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." So when I studied these two words we find in Matthew using Isaiah's prophecy, the ability to carry, strength for labor, or just the idea of just getting some help. Is there anybody out there that you quickly understand that Jesus is not talking to that guy or that guy or that girl or that girl? He's talking to you. You're the one who's weary. You're the one who's bone tired, and you're the one who's struggling to carry the load. You're the one. And Jesus is inviting you to come to him, learn from him. And he says, if you learn from me, then the load will become easy and the burden will become light. The picture here is that of being somebody who can carry the weight. You carry the weight. Why? Because it doesn't seem to be that heavy anymore. How does a burden become light? It is when you are lifted yourself and being carried by another, while at the same time you're carrying your burden. So we go back to the question Jesus asked in John 1:38. What are you seeking? What are you looking for? We would all say that is what we are seeking. I know I can't escape the burdens of life. I can't escape the sicknesses of body, nor the anguishes of mind. But I don't want to be crushed underneath their weight. I can't escape the stresses of life, but I don't want to always be stressed out. I can't escape the sadness, but I don't want to know the depths of sadness, to where I could even plummet to where I despair of life itself. We asked in the beginning, what are we to understand? Well, if you understand the Old Testament, then you understand that Capernaum eventually became the headquarters for Jesus' ministry. So the idea of John 1 saying Peter's home was Bethsaida, but now in Matthew 8 he's living in Capernaum, how am I to understand that? I am to understand that once Peter got more and more involved, he simply packed up all of his belongings and moved to Capernaum. Why? Because that's where Jesus dwelt. How many of us know that every name in the Bible meant something? I mean, not only people's names, but the names of places. They all meant something. And you could actually look up the city of Bethsaida, and you could look up the city of Capernaum, and you could see the meaning of those places, why they were giving those names. So I looked up the name Bethsaida, and I found that the name of the city simply means a fishing house. So I get the understanding that while Peter lived there, everything was about living life, making money, and making ends meet. How many of us does that describe basically your approach to life? That's what it's all about. I'm just living, I'm making a living, I'm earning money, and I'm hoping that money will stretch far enough that it'll last until next payday. I mean, that basically describes the whole reason why you get up and walk out into the world every day. But then I looked up the word Capernaum, and I understood that the name Capernaum corresponds with the idea of being right and being straight. But then there's another part of the word, the name, that includes the number 3. Now, why is that significant? Well, as I was looking at that, here's what I understood in my own heart. In my own heart, I understood that the whole thought about approaching life revolved around being right with the triune God. Life can revolve around people, it can revolve around work, it can revolve around money, or life can revolve around Jesus. Every day I may get up and go to work, but I do it as a part of my living my life for Jesus. I may leave work and go home, but again, the whole time I'm at home, it's still a part of my life being lived for Jesus. I have often said to believers, as if they're responding to me, I've often said that somebody might react by saying, well, Brother Mike, if I understand you correctly, then you're saying that I've got to basically eat, sleep, and drink Jesus 24/7. And then I say, yeah, that's it. You're starting to get it. That is it. That is it. Life revolves around him. It revolves around knowing him. It revolves around learning from him. It revolves around reading his love letter and learning how he did it. Nobody did it better than he did. How many of us right now do you not need to go to your front door and you need to throw it open wide and you need to holler, Jesus, come in this house? Well, if you will, we're going to find these things. Number one, Jesus came into the house. When Andrew said that he wanted to know where Jesus dwelled, then what did he not want? He didn't want to run quickly through a 1-hour Sunday morning service and then run out as quickly as amen was said and then holler back over his shoulder, I'll see you next Sunday. If that's not what he wanted, then what did he want? Guys and gals, Andrew, by his answer, was saying, I want to show up early and I want to stay late. And then when it's over, I want you to come home with me. What does it look like to live in Bethsaida? Well, it doesn't have to be quick on Sunday. We can spend all day with Jesus on Sunday, but then come Monday, it's all business. And again, I wonder for how many does that pretty much describe your Christian life? You're willing to stir yourself and get yourself to Sunday service. And you're willing to spend the day with Jesus on Sunday. But then come Monday, it's back to Bethsaida. Again, life revolves around living life, making a living, earning money, and making that money stretch to meet needs. Again, I'm not saying that that's not the way you and I don't need to live life. Obviously, we need to get up and go to work and make a living. We need to do that. But why? Friends, the reason why is not to put in my 8 hours and earn my wages. I get up and go to work. Why? Because that's a part of the will of God for me. I work where I work because that's God's will for me. I work where I work because that is an expression of me living my Christian life for Jesus. So then what does it look like then if I'm living in Capernaum? What does it look like for life to be revolving around being right with God? Well, gang, it means that I spend all day with Jesus on Sunday. Then I wake up on Monday and go to work, and Jesus comes with me. We get off work, and Jesus comes home with me. We run to the store, and Jesus goes to the store with me. We go out to eat, and Jesus comes to the restaurant. That's what it looks like. And I'm wondering today, does that describe your life? And if it doesn't, then can I encourage you to go to your front door, throw it open, and say to Jesus, Jesus, come in this house. Then the second thing we see in the story is that Jesus saw Peter's mother-in-law. Once Jesus comes in the house, what does he need to do? What do we need to let him do? We need to let him see whatever it is he needs to see. What would you think about having somebody come over to your house, and then they started going through all the rooms, started looking into all your closets, started looking into all the private areas of your house. Well, yes, we would quickly stop somebody from doing that. We would quickly remind them, hey, this is my house. There are some rooms that you're not welcome to go into. Those are private areas. So yes, we would quickly stop somebody, but not Jesus. Why is that? Because that should be the whole reason why we invited him over. Why do we need Jesus to come into our house? Because we know there are some things that we need to let him see. How many of us understand that you and I can't hide anything from him? And I've often said to the church, I wonder how many times do you and I start praying, and God in heaven is able to see everything that's in our soul, and he eventually says, well, when are we going to get around to all the things that you and I really need to be talking about? So I'm sure you're here with me and you're agreeing with me, yes, Jesus needs to come home with me. But then we're not letting him see everything he needs to see. We're not letting him see everything that he already knows, that only he can fix it. Only he can solve the problems. He's the only one that's got the answer to the questions that you're asking. He's the only one that has the solutions to all the things that are plaguing you. What does he need to see? So we come back to the original question, what is it that you're looking for? And I hope that you're here with me and you're agreeing with what I've said thus far, that you and I, we want to know the power and the energy that it's going to take that life's burdens become easy and light and easy to carry. When Jesus turns around and asks us, what is it that you're looking for? I hope you and I are responding by saying, I want to know that my infirmities, my sicknesses, my griefs, my sorrows are actually being borne and carried through the help and the strength that can only come from Jesus. I want to know the power and the promises that are talked about in the Bible. I want them to be more than just words that I'm reading off the page. I want them to become living realities in my life. I mean, I have told the church through the years that there are so many times that I'll come across something in the Bible, and what I read is so appealing that I tell Jesus, man, I want that. And that's what I noticed about these two chapters. I saw Jesus moving in and out of situations, and he always got it right. No matter what the situation was, no matter what kind of people he was dealing with, no matter what kind of problems they were presenting to him, he knew exactly what to do. He knew exactly what to say. He knew exactly how to help. And how many of us do we not see Jesus doing that? And you and I do not stand in awe in front of him. And like the great hymn says, I stand amazed in the presence of the Nazarene. I tell Jesus, I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to move in and out, meeting people, interacting with people. And I want to do it like you did. And I'll say it again, that is a big part of what it means for you and I to be a Christian. It means that we are presenting ourselves at such a level of quality that people actually want what we have. And can I say again that the reason why you and I are answering his question, what is it that you're looking for? And these are the things that we're wanting. And the reason why is because that's what it takes to live life. And if that's what you want, then you need to let Jesus come into the house and you need to let him see whatever he needs to see. In your conversations with Jesus, you need to talk to him about everything. Here's how Jesus told Peter to tell us. Cast every care on me because I care for you. There's somebody out there right now that you're crying out to God, I can't carry this. And God is saying, I never intended for you to. Cast that care onto me because I care for you. Jesus again said, come to me when you're weary. Come to me when you're heavy laden. When your knees are buckling due to the weight of the burdens you're trying to carry. And Jesus said, come to me. Learn from me. And those burdens will become easy and light. You'll be able to live life not struggling, but victoriously. Why? Because you're finding the energy, you're finding the power in Jesus himself. So what are we seeing? Well, Jesus came into the house. Number 2, he saw Peter's mother-in-law. And then thirdly, he touched her. When do things start getting fixed? When? It's when he touches them. What if we let Jesus in the house? And what if we then can't let him see everything? And what if we don't want him handling everything? I mean, I have often heard people say, man, God doesn't want me. There are things that I've done, there are places that I've been, that God wouldn't want to have anything to do with me. I don't know how wrong you are. You need to let Jesus in your house. You need to let him see everything, and you need to let him put his hands on it. What if we can't? Well, look, what if we can't? Well, then there'll be fever. John 14:1, Jesus said this to us. Don't let your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me. I want you to notice that word troubled. The word troubled, the word picture is that of a bowl of water that is being stirred. Troubled. The troubling of the sea by the wind tossing the waves. That's the image you get in this word. Troubled or agitated. But another idea of what the word troubled means, it means that we are burning up with emotions. How am I to understand that? Well, when does that happen? Well, it's usually some event that is happening in our life. And due to the event, due to what has happened, I begin to burn up with whatever emotion. It be anger, or it be depression, or it be anxiety. I mean, who here today has something happened and you are agitated? Jesus says, don't let your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me. Do we all hear the idea of what the answer is to the troubling of our heart? Not only what the answer is, but what can stop it? Jesus says it's what we believe. It's our faith. Can I encourage you? I don't have time right here to go into it, but that verse is John 14 and verse 1. Can I encourage you to read John 14 and hear all the things Jesus says in that chapter, where he encourages us to believe these things. And because we believe it, he says those are the things that will stop the troubling of your heart. Well, like what? Well, very quickly, let me say that these are the verses where you and I hear Jesus say, I have gone to prepare a place for you. And if I've gone to prepare a place for you, I'll come again and receive you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. Oh, read that chapter. Read all the things that Jesus said. It's John 14 where he talked about the Comforter. And he said the Comforter is going to come and he's going to dwell in you. Friends, it's all those things that we believe that will stop the troubling of our heart. What if I let him in my house, but I can't let him see everything and I can't let him handle everything? Well, there'll be fever. Not only will there be fever, but you'll be sick. There's infection. There's festering. There's pain. There's aches. I'll be sick. But then notice what it says about Peter's mother, that she was not up walking around sick of a fever. No, she was in the bed. Here's what it says. And when Jesus was coming to Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid down and sick of a fever. So I have fever, I'm sick, and I have no energy. I'm struggling at keeping up with life. I'm struggling at carrying the burden. But then what do we see in contrast? Well, we know that Peter let Jesus in his house. He let Jesus see what he needed to see. He let Jesus put his hands on it. And then what was the result of that? Fever left. She arose, and she began to minister to them. Oh, who needs to return to that? So what have we seen? Jesus came into the house. He saw Peter's mother-in-law. He laid his hands on her. And then notice the end of the story. Then everybody that lived around Peter began to bring people to Peter's house. They brought to him many. So look at what can happen in your home. If you'll just go to the front door, throw it open, and holler at Jesus, Jesus, come in this house. When they brought them, where exactly did these people bring these people? They brought them to Peter's house. So we want Jesus to flow into our houses. Why? So that Jesus can then flow out of our houses. The only way that he'll flow out is that everything in has gotten fixed. And we all know he'll probably be a while on doing just that. And maybe you're thinking, well, man, it'll be a while before he ever gets to where he can use my home to flow out of. Now, how many of us know that if you'll just let him do these first three things, then he can begin to flow out of your house? Just let him in, let him see what he needs to see, and let him start putting his hands on it. And then he'll begin to flow out of you as he's working in you. The idea is not that we are freed and delivered from everything, and only then can he begin to flow out of us. That we will be unusable until then. So we go back to John chapter 1. And we remember how the disciples answered the question. What are you looking for? How did they answer that question? And how do you and I need to answer that question? They said, I want to know where you dwell. So let me ask you that. Where do you dwell? And how do I answer that? How am I to understand that? Well, Jesus says, you need to come to me. Well, where is he? Can I encourage you? He's in your prayer closet. And that's where you need to go. That's where he's dwelling, and that's where you need to dwell. You need to spend time with him. You need to carve out a chunk of time, and you need to say, this is where I want to dwell. This needs to become a discipline and a practice in my life. Why? Because that's what I want. That's what I'm seeking. I'm not seeking some hurried conversation. Where do you dwell? Well, where is he? He also says this, I'm in the midst of where 2 or 3 have gathered in my name. And we know what that means. It means that you need to get into the practice of stirring yourself up and going to church every Sunday. At first, when we let Jesus in, all the things he has to see, all the things he has to touch, can I tell you, that's going to be a gut-wrenching process. It's going to be very emotional. And for lots of people, it becomes too much for them to let Jesus finish. But if we can keep letting him in, keep letting him see, keep letting him touch, and in time the healing catches up with the sickness, and not only catches up with it, but overcomes it. And either he totally heals us of it all, or he enables us to begin to carry it, and it not be an overwhelming burden on us anymore. Do you have a relationship with anybody that before they can get out of the car and get walked up to your front door, you've already thrown the door open and you're hollering at them because they're good friends and good neighbors, and you're hollering at them, come on and get in this house. It can be that way with Jesus. Even if it's not to that point yet, by faith, know that it will. And go ahead and tell Jesus, I need you in this house. Come and get in this house. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Bye.